Hi, Parul.
Hi Radhika, how are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me? Let's first do a sound check
Yeah.
and to see whether everyone can hear us clearly and there's no disturbance or echo. So if you can give me a thumbs up, viewers, so we know that we are good to go. So you can hear me clearly, right?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, so let's go ahead. I just your voice is uh,
Is it?
it's clear, but it seems to be not very audible. Like it's not loud enough, I think, maybe slightly. Are you wearing headphones? No,
No, I don't have
speakers.
headphones on. Mamta
Okay,
and Pallavi have said that they can hear us.
okay,
Hi Pallavi.
okay. So we're
Okay.
good to go.
Yeah. So I want to start this with a huge congratulations, Radhika. This is an amazing achievement. Um, your book was it touched me in many ways. I know it's called Touched by Life,
Yeah.
and it has touched me immensely. Um, I found it in the beginning. I think I already shared this with you that I found it a little difficult to read because I attached myself to your situation. In fact, there's a paragraph in the book that I later came across which talked about personalization and you being told by one of your mentors that that don't personalize yourself in the situation and why do you think this is all about you, which is what kind of hit me because I think when I was reading your book, uh, the helplessness of or the desire to wanting to jump in and rescue you is what but it's amazing how it turns into this uh, it's a story of courage and strength and how life, it's actually just one big adventurous ride with so many learnings on the way. I want to share how you feel about it at this point when it's been read by so many people. It's available internationally on Kindle and in physical copies. How do you feel?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you the story of the book because this book, as when you started reading it, you would know that it starts with an event, an experience that happened. So the book actually came out, was published about 2 years ago, and so ever since this, I went through this experience and post that whatever happened and unfolded. In fact, just after that experience, I wanted to write about it because I found it a very profound experience and very mystical in the beginning. I wanted to actually tell people about my experience. So that's how I started. And I, and then I went on to write this many years later. I got the opportunity. I came across a man called Satish Purohit from Man Lion, Man Lion Author Solutions,
Mm.
and he helped me. He says, "You know what? If you want to write a book," I said, "I want to write a book. I just don't know how to write it. I don't know what it takes, how to go about it. I don't have the discipline." So he mentored me. He made sure I write certain amount every day, and the book just flowed. So he always says that, I've never seen anyone write so quickly and complete the whole thing. I said, because I think it was a dam waiting to burst. And
Mm.
it just, I didn't put my head into it. I didn't use my intellect about how this is going to sound, how people are going to receive it. I didn't look into the commercials, nothing. It was just an opportunity for me to share the story. And so the book, as I said, came out about 2 years ago. And and that was it for me. That was like I've come, it's come to fruition. The book has happened. Now it doesn't matter. But 2 years post that is when it's come on to Kindle, and uh, it was just grace. It was just coincidence, whatever you may call it. And yeah, so it's out there. And so thank you so much for your words and how you received the book. And I'm glad you saw it that way because I said I didn't put my head into it. I just put my heart into it.
You did. You did. I was going to say, it's when you read it, it's from your heart.
Yeah.
and it's received also by the heart. How long did you take to write the book?
Uh, I think it was all done in a couple of months. I had a certain target that I must write down so many words in a day about, and sometimes I would exceed it by 1,000 more words because I just had so much more to say, you know. And when something has happened over a period of time, you're recollecting, you're going back into the memory, and you're recollecting. And even today, there is so much that has changed from the time I wrote the book, right? There's so much more that I've learned or understood about things because life is just a process of learning more and unlearning so much. So, yeah, I wrote it in a couple of months. And I think I was so eager to have that book out. I just wanted to have this form and structure, this heart that I could see. So I was like, I'll just publish the book and I'll just put it out. So that's how it happened. Few
One of
months.
the one of the very good parts of the book that I thought was the way you've described every place you visited. Um,
Hmm.
the descriptions of wherever you have traveled to have been it pretty much takes me there. Like it's very clear, and um, it's like fresh in your memory.
Right.
So
So
tell
yeah.
me, who was the first person that read your book? Who did you first show it to? Who did you open to?
So there were a couple of people when I wrote the book. I had it. I didn't have a copy of it, but I sent it out to people to get a kind of sense of how what they felt about the book and if they could give me a feedback and things like that. So, of course, different people will look at the same thing in a different way. So you have different opinions. Some people were looking at it very technically and, what are the words and how are you
The
using
articulation.
grammar and punctuation and things like that, and also the commercial value of such a book and things like that. And then there were people, so I did send it out to a couple of my friends. One of my friends who actually wrote a book about her journey with her daughter's experience with her struggle with cancer, and she wrote a wonderful book with that about it. So I sent it to her, so she could relate to it because she wrote from her heart, and then she could see uh, how this was very much a book about something like that, a human experience, a real experience. So I did send it to a couple of people. Everybody received it differently, gave me their feedback. But I must say, there is one of my mentors who I learned something from. He's written a couple of books, and he said, whatever comes out organically, whatever flows out is how it's meant to be. He goes as far as not even giving his book for editing because he says, as that moment is happening and as it is coming out, we do not need the interference of intellect. We do not need any correction. It just is as is. And I said, okay, there is going to be a time when I have to trust the process, put this out. It doesn't matter if I got it absolutely correct and grammatically correct, or there's always scope for more editing, but I need to just trust the process as it flowed. Because you must have read in my book, I truly believe this, that you're simply an instrument because I did not eventually write the book. The book was written through me, right?
Yes.
So, so you're an instrument and you have to just be that instrument without interfering in the process. So,
So tell me, you talk about an incident in your life, which is how you start the book. The incident which kind of set you on this track of so many things that you've realized and learned in your life today. And you talk about it, talk about your reaction to it, um, in terms of, uh, it putting you initially on a back foot to receiving life. Um, I want to know, um how was your husband's reaction? How was Vikram's reaction to that incident? Um, and do you think it changed him in any way?
I think it was a life for everyone. Can you hear me clearly? Because you're kind of,
I can.
yeah.
I
I
can
think
hear
it
you.
was a life-changing experience for everybody who knew me, for my whole family. And of course, my husband being, my partner in life, the closest person, um, it was life-changing for him as well. When it happened, so we are talking about the incident is actually mine. It starts with a near-death experience that I had, right? It was overwhelming. I think we were just trying to grapple with, oh my God, what just happened? And this happens to other people. We read about this or we've heard about this, and some of us have not even heard about it. And it's really happened. Uh, so, um, so I think it was very overwhelming in the beginning. We went through a lot of gratitude that I lived through it. So that was the first thing. Yet, for me personally, I was in a trance-like state. Okay, so while there was gratitude that, oh my God, I have lived through this and I have my life back, uh, there were other emotions and other feelings that were coming up. So typically, in a near-death experience, if anyone has read books on it, um, a lot of and even experiences. I saw something on Netflix the other day called Surviving Death. I just started to see it, where people talk about their experiences, and a lot of people say that they have this, newfound gratitude to life, and they have lost their fear of death because they realized that it's really not a big deal, and things like that. I think for me it was very confusing because I did not feel that. Somehow my mind or my consciousness started to fixate or think about, oh my God, life can just change in a second. Something can happen that can completely take away everything that you know is life, you know. So I think that became the foremost thought for me, and that's what kind of started to surface. And of course, I would express it. I lived through that. I lived through the anxiety of it. So, yeah, it impacted him. He saw me struggle uh, with the post trauma. It was a very difficult time, but I think I'm very, very fortunate. I think I realized I was very fortunate even then. And in retrospect, that it's really important for people to have support, not somebody telling them what they should feel, but really holding them while they feel what they feel.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what it was.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So, I think I speak for myself and a lot of people that I personally know that know you. I think a lot of us look at you as our mentor. You know, I look at you as my mentor. You are my go-to person. Can you hear me, Radhika?
Yeah, so there is a break. I can hear you, but you're just freezing, so
The
that's
video
okay.
keeps going off. Okay. So you are my go-to person as when I'm grappling with something difficult in life. I wanted to understand, is there a difference between a mentor and a guru? What's a guru? Because there's references of you finding your guru in your book as you journey it. So this is perhaps a personal question right now, but is there a difference between a mentor and a guru? How do you know you found your guru? And how do you get there with that experience?
So you're actually asking me two different questions, sort
I am.
of.
I am.
In
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Okay, we can take that
So,
one at a time.
so, uh, so when you ask me what's the difference between a mentor and a guru, it really is the person who's viewing it. It's not anybody's place to say, oh, you know what, I'm your mentor. I know it. I know stuff, and I can tell you what to do, right? For me, I've been very aware of not coming from that, very conscious of it, right? Uh, and I may have done it because it's human tendency to become like preachy, like you become a teacher. But it's very important to share your journey rather than tell people what they should be doing or thinking. So that's the first thing. So I think the person who, if you are interfacing with someone, you have a certain relationship. So this is about you. How do I relate to that person? So we come across many people who are, when you say it very lightly, many gurus in our life, or many teachers. When you talk about
Mhm.
guru in terms of teachers, so everybody, in fact, is a guru in that way. But yes, someone who, so I'm going to come to the second part of your question, which is about how I found my guru. So I'll
Yeah,
tell you about.
yeah.
I was not actively looking for someone. I was not saying that, oh, I need a guru. I think I understand it as somebody you anchor into or something you anchor into. It's a space where you find your anchor, you rest in. So I think I was at an unconscious level looking at someone where I could find something to rest. But to be honest, I was looking for answers that time, someone to help me out, because that's how we start. So I came across this lady. Somebody said, why don't you go for meditation? And I was like, oh, okay, let me go for meditation, something to do, and meditation is such a buzzword and things like that. So I found this lady and I would go there sometimes, sometimes not. And it was just very casual till I landed up in her house during, I remember, monsoons, and she was not having meditation that day. And she says, oh, didn't you get the message? And I said, no. So she says, I have vertigo today, so I'm just lying in bed. I'm not doing meditation. So she said, but you've come all the way, so please have tea with me. And I was having tea and we were talking about the weather. And in that moment, something happened within me. And I looked at her and I said, who are you? Right? And she says, I don't know. So I said, and I started having this emotion, these tears well up. Actually, my heart felt expanded. A lot of times when our heart expands, we have tears in our eyes, and we think we're getting emotional. It's just our heart expanding. So she told me, why don't you go to that bookshelf and pick up a book? Some book she asked me to pick up. I don't remember. I did, and I opened it, and she says, start reading something from it. And there it was about this sage who spoke about him meeting his guru, right? And then she says, what are you reading? I said, I'm reading about this. And I just sat there and I just cried. It was not an intellectual process for me. Um, and so then I knew that she's somebody special, that there's something energetically. And sometimes not putting words is the better thing to do, because words basically they don't describe energy that well. So I then I thought, what, maybe she can help me. So for me, the guru became about someone I can help. And I kept telling her, why don't you help me? Why don't you give me the answer for this, an answer for that? And she says, I am not going to do that. You have to find your own answer. So for me, I understood a guru is someone where you have the space, to be yourself. Also, you feel a sense of restfulness. You don't even have to tell somebody. Actually, you don't even have to tell your guru what you're feeling. Energetically, everything is known. There is a dynamics that is happening, and you find a place of rest and peace. For me, that is what a guru is. And for everyone, it's going to be
For
different.
everyone, it's different. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. For yeah, I get a connect when you say something about where you find your calm, where you find that you stop searching for
Mm.
something,
Mm-hmm.
but you feel like this is it.
Right.
True. Uh, so, a few questions that I had were around all the therapies that you are, that you work with.
Mm-hmm.
They deal with a lot of problems. They stem from like people that are going through difficult situations in their life, and they're looking for solutions. So when they come to you with them, there's a lot of baggage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, does that baggage get transferred to you? How do you deal with that?
Okay.
So
Um,
at this point, I actually want to tell also, I don't know, to people that are out there that Radhika works with a lot of people, with a lot of therapeutic, alternate medicine is what they come under these days, I guess. Um, that's access bars, and I'll actually let Radhika tell you about that, and then we can go to this question because otherwise it might be out of context.
So, what do I do is always a big question to me. A lot of people ask me, what do you do? And I was like, I really don't know what I do. I don't have a word for it. I don't have a title for it. It's because I have gone through, in the quest of finding my own answers, looking for my own personal evolution and looking for the right thing and the new. So I've been a spiritual vagabond in many ways. Been great at shopping, so been door to door. And I have learned and been exposed to many things. Some of them had a lot of value, some of them had temporary value, and some none at all. But at the end of it, everything has value. Every experience does. So, what do I do? I think I do. Uh, I just, I guess, I just come from a place where um, all my experience, I'm just enriched with my own experiences, and I'm just coming from a place of sharing that. So I don't have a technical term for it. I'm not even I don't call myself anything as such. If you can come up with what I am,
I
please
no,
let me
I actually don't really agree with you because I had a conversation with somebody very interesting that I met. I think it was a couple of years ago, and they were talking to me about how they say the yugs that we go through, and and we are now in a generation which comes across, which not comes across, sorry, which has a lot of healers,
know.
which I think are and this is a phase that the earth or mankind's going through, that with a lot of healing process, um, that is because of years of what we've gone through, and then what we are, the next yug that we are looking at would be, I don't remember the word that they used for it. So I would put you there, um, and I think a lot of people would agree with me that you are a healer. Whether
I
that
want to
comes
actually
across.
say something about that. What I've learned. So this being a healer, it's a trend. It's something that's very popular. And it's also a need, and there are a lot of people who are into healing arts. It's very beautiful. It's very enriching to the person who is and also brings it to the other people in the world. So in a way, you contribute. Uh, so what I'm trying to say here is everyone is really a healer if they choose to be, because you've got to be the healing presence. When you're a healing presence means that you are a contributive presence. The moment you're willing to contribute somewhere, you become a healer,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So, so I like to look at it like that. But I want to answer your question first. So that's a technical question you had. That when people come to you and
Yeah,
they bring
magic.
issues,
Yeah.
uh, so does it get transferred? Well, it can and it needn't. I think what I have understood at this point in my life is if you don't get personally involved, if you don't make it about yourself or give it any meaning, but you become a witness,
Hmm.
or you're an observer. The moment you're an observer, you're untouched. It is when we get involved, when we become a participant, we become the experiencer, right? So I think it's really important to get that clarity first when you work with people. And secondly, of course, I feel if you are doing this professionally, you've got to be aware, give yourself a little time, work on yourself. I really feel that it's very important to work on your own, if I may use the word Shakti, your own energy field. And then because you cannot give to somebody if you're depleted anyway, right? So yes, both aspects are there. You can get affected if you're not an observer and if you're not aware and you know how to hold your own energy,
Hmm.
right? I mean, we are all affected by everything. Today, you don't have to talk to people and hear about their problems. You can put on the news, You can hear social media,
Yeah.
and you're hearing worse stuff,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah. But they also, they also say that, like, when you're doing Reiki, for instance, or when you're doing, you have to be careful because you might transfer that energy. And I don't know if that's true because I've not learned the art of. Um, so that's that was the
as
question
I
I
said,
had
it
because I'm
depends
not.
on you. Yeah, but it
I
depends
think,
on you
yeah,
at the end of the day, and
yeah,
also what is your point of view in life. If you're going to look at it from that way, that perspective, then you're going to be experiencing it based on that perspective. That is one thing. And yes, there are certain approaches and modalities that leave you a little bit more vulnerable. But some people can do well with it and some not so. So I had to make certain choices even for myself and say, okay, this is not something that works for me. It leaves me actually more depleted. So it's very important for us to keep checking in with ourselves
yeah.
and really honor our own energetic field first and then do something and then say, okay, this is not for me. This doesn't work for me.
Okay. So in the book, there's a section where you talk about past life regression.
Yeah.
Uh, how does past life regression work? You also talk about a few interesting past life regressions that you went through.
Hmm.
Is there something interesting from that you can tell people that are listening? Because I thought that was a very interesting
Yeah.
piece.
So past life regression works when they basically relax you completely. So your conscious mind, because what gets us to believe in logic and the logical or the linear time is our conscious mind. So in basically they take you through a deep relaxation, and then you're able to access deeper memories. That's how typical PLR or past life regression works. And there you're going to pull out certain memories which comes in pictures that you can best narrate that memory in. Okay, so you will have certain visuals which come as like a stream of different visuals, and you can weave a story which tells you about a certain incident. Now, past life is very interesting. I found it very interesting. But I'll be very honest with you that today I find that there are many, many different ways of looking at our past impressions. And for me personally, and of course, past life regression works beautifully for some people. But for me personally, I came to a point in my life and I said, okay, I have been a billion things in past life. But I got to start looking at not making that an excuse for why I'm going through something today. Yes, I can use it as an understanding, but right now, in this moment, I want to see how functional my life is because I saw too much of me doing this and a lot of other people where they would get stuck and they would justify why they go through, why they hate that person. Oh, they did this to me in this life. The thing is that you did something too, but we tend to not look at it like that. So I wanted to get out of the story parrot, the whole thing of the story weaving of it. And I said, okay, I want to look at this more practically because for me, the spiritual and the science got to meet, or rather the spiritual can become very fantasy orientated, very abstract, and you need to function in day-to-day living. There's no point in you and me sitting in a cave and meditating if I can't function in my daily life very effectively. I mean, that's what I think. So, past life regression was very, very interesting. I had someone who spontaneously went into past life regression. While sitting here, we were doing actually a deep relaxation and emotional tapping. I was doing that, and she slipped into past life very quickly. She was a very young girl. She got a lot of clarity as to why she had a certain feeling or emotion to one of her relatives who actually loved her very much, but she could not understand why she hated her. So the point of past life was and I told her it's not the story is not important. It's what you feel and you realize you're carrying emotions from the past and you're making it about today. And we are all carrying very irrelevant things.
Yeah.
So irrelevant things are determining the relevance of today. So you cannot erase a memory, but you can erase, or you can start shifting the relationship to that memory, right? And that's what past life regression, eventually that's the aim of past life regression, is that you change your relationship to a memory.
It's like somewhere in the book where you say, I think it's towards the end, when you say, travel a lot, but make sure your baggage is light,
Yeah.
and carry, because there'll be good memories that you want to bring back, or good memoirs that you want to bring back. To me, that was more not just about travel, but about what we're living through on a daily basis as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that was interesting. You know, there's a point, I think, that I related to in the book, and I think, knowing me, you will agree with me. Is there are days that I find myself being upset over everything and everyone, and I think that's an emotion that you went through as well, as you talk about it in your book. How do you deal with this on a daily basis? Because sometimes, some days, you're just there. You're like, you're back there, and you need to get yourself out, but you're just upset about, and anything and anything and everything somebody does triggers it. Um, so how does one deal with that? How do you still deal with that? Is that something that you've learned to put behind you?
Okay, so that's something we all go through. I think there is not a single person in this world who doesn't go through that, except for very realized people. But we all have our days where we everything gets to us, or everyone gets to us. And I think it's not about having a. For a long time, I struggled. I suffered through this whole thing about wanting to be perfect, having it sorted, and never having those kind of days or even moments. And I think there's a humanness in us, and we've got to allow ourselves to be human without needing to go into perfection. So what I realized is we very quickly want to go get out of uncomfortable feelings and emotions. We want to feel right very quickly. And what we do is we bypass these feelings, right? And when we bypass these feelings, we tend to, collect them. It becomes collective, and we kind of put it under the rug. And then they start manifesting in different ways. It could even happen as much as physically, okay, which is really difficult. And then it can happen like burst of time periods in your life where you're going through very depressive or angry or dysfunctional time. So I think it's very important for allowing yourself to have and feeling it's a mess. Uh, do I have those days? Of course, I can actually sense sometimes that I have those days where I feel like I'm just at the edge. And I think what the key here is to become the observer again, to start catching yourself. So you observe yourself and say, oh, I'm going there. So what do I need to do? So you do the best. You allow yourself. So what I do personally, I actually take some time out and I allow myself to feel whatever I feel, whether it is anger, upset, frustration, all those feelings is what you want to feel. Okay. And when you allow yourself to feel it, it moves through you. Then you're not you're not a puppet in its hands, right? So a lot of us want to distract ourselves. We'll do shopping. We'll want to call up a friend and chat. We'll watch a movie. While all those things are good and are healthy at some level, but we have to be aware that they don't become distractions from what you're truly feeling. So it's okay to feel that some days are really difficult, because to be honest, look at this world today, and there's a lot of difficulty. We are exposed to, and a lot of the difficulty we feel is not even ours. We are picking up on the difficulty of the world around us. And we are tapping into an energy field where there is frustration or anger or agitation. And we are simply becoming, tuning into it. It's like a radio frequency. So I think you got to be, for me, silence. I've learned that silence is an important thing. And it's very difficult to do, because when you're agitated, you're restless and you want to do things and get out of it. And I think to allow yourself to feel the deepest and the darkest places of your own self is where the healing happens. And it doesn't happen with words, it happens in silence.
I'm just happy to know that everybody goes through it. It's not just me.
Everyone goes through it. I'm sure everyone goes through
I'm
it.
not just the only one here. We
Not at
actually have
all.
a question. Let's see what there's a question here. Hold on, let me get there. How good or bad are you at hiding your true feelings? How important is it to be politically correct?
Some of us are really bad at hiding our true feelings, and some of us are very good at hiding our true feelings. And I think that really depends on person to person. Um, I, I once heard that who you are privately and who you are publicly or socially, if there's a huge gap between it, there's greater the angst in your life. So I was like, it's absolutely. So we all are trying to put up this front which is acceptable, which is proper, which is acceptable, and most of all, we are trying to avoid being vulnerable, you know. And because we feel that vulnerability means it's a weakness and people will take advantage or laugh at me or say something about me. I can speak for myself that I found it very, first of all, it was very difficult for me. Secondly, I found it very taxing, very exhausting. I would actually get physically exhausted with it because you're trying to be something and you're feeling something else. It's like you're taking yourself and you're fragmenting yourself, right? You're like making pieces of yourself. And I think that doesn't really go down well in the long run. It doesn't do anything for you. So I realized that vulnerability is fine. I can be vulnerable if you're willing to make a mistake, if you're willing to make a fool of yourself in somebody else's eyes, if you're willing to be wrong or not how everyone else is, and just showing up as yourself in the moment. And I think that's very liberating.
I think it is.
And that for me, the book was that journey as well, because I had to speak about things that I went through, which when I went through was I was trying to hide it from people. Nobody should know. People used to look at me oddly. They knew something is off.
Yeah.
And I was so aware that they must be talking. They must be going home and saying, oh, don't you think there's something wrong? Don't you think there's something happening? And I used to have people even telling me on my face, why aren't you doing this? You don't know how to have fun? Now, people mean well. I'm not saying that they were being nasty, but we tend to do that to other people. So for me, the book was this whole journey of vulnerability. And it was very liberating because if I can be myself in that moment, raw, without any agenda, it doesn't mean you give yourself permission to be obnoxious. There is a consciousness in your action. But this is what I'm feeling. I'm feeling extremely anxious. Like right now, I was talking to my friends and I said, I go through a certain degree of anxiety when I sit on flights.
Yeah, me too.
I cry. I have cried when there's turbulence. I still cry. I am not at all sorted. I'm a hot mess. And now I do not want to hide it. This is how I am. I've actually sat and howled on a flight,
Yeah,
and I've sat.
I'm with you there, right there with you. God
And
forbid the plane moves a little
liberating.
bit.
Yeah, exactly. So we
Totally.
all have
Yeah.
these spaces, and
Yeah.
I think we owe it to ourselves. And this is the beauty of age. When you're in your 20s, you don't value this,
Yeah.
and it's okay. It's a process. But when you come to a certain age, you realize, wow, life goes by really quickly, and to live authentically is the greatest gift that you can give yourself.
Yeah. That's true. And also, I think people around you, the ones that are there to stay, get used to it. They accept you for who
Right.
you are and
Yeah.
admire you for who you are.
Right.
And I think the others that were going to get filtered anyway. If anyone has any questions, I think now would be a good time to put them down. While I'm just going to play a quick get to know Radhika game.
Ah.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do, Radhika, is I'm going to mention the word and you're going to quickly mention whatever comes to your mind.
Okay.
Okay? No thinking about it, no second guessing. So just whatever comes to your mind, right? Friendship.
Valuable.
Life.
Beautiful.
Can't think so much faster. Joy.
Oh, you know what? Actually, I'll be very honest with you. When you said life, there are two things that came up with for me. It's beautiful, and yet it's very. I can't get the word for it. It's like I don't want to be sounding like, oh, life is so beautiful. We tend to say that a lot. It's also challenging, you know.
Adventure,
So
you think?
beautiful and challenging. Yeah,
Adventure. Good and bad.
yeah, good and bad.
Yeah. Joy.
Sorry,
Joy. Joy.
joy, expanding.
Food.
I am so your voice is breaking. Food is
Food.
what you said.
Food.
Food.
Food. Food.
I can't
Food.
hear you. Food.
Food. Khana.
Food. Khana. Food. Wow. Uh, love.
Mm. God.
The ultimate. The absolute.
Trust.
I think it's silence because that's what I felt.
Mm. Guru.
Anchor.
Death.
Death. Death.
Death.
Continuity.
So that was mine. Does anyone else have any questions for Radhika? Anything that you want to know? Any one words that you want her to answer? Just put them down. Radhika,
Yeah.
any other books in the pipeline?
I want to. I have many ideas that I want to write a book about this and I want to write a book about that, but it's all up here. It's not happened, but I know the seed has been sown. And again, what actually stops you is when people say, "Oh, don't write about this," and I think it's going to be my own personal experience and my own personal journey. I'll write when it happens. I love to write. I don't know. I think it's a meditative experience for
Hmm.
me, so I would like to write. I'm doing a lot of other stuff right now in my life, so I think time is a factor, and also because I'm a little bit lazy, to be
So there will
honest.
be one soon.
Hopefully, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Radhika, one more word for you. Love.
Love, peace.
Please.
Hmm.
Okay, that's what I had for today.
Deepak, do you have
Uh,
any more questions for me about my book? He always has questions. Um,
Deepak, do you have any more questions about the book? He made
or
his
about it.
way. He made his way in the book.
Yeah, yeah, he made his way in the book.
He did.
Yeah, that's the thing. The whole book has got people from my everyday life,
Yeah.
and who set some example, taught me something. Um, what does time mean to me? Somebody's asking, what does time mean to me?
Yeah.
Because I think I said about the that time is a. I think it's this whole limiting factor. I go into this sense of hurry and needing to grasp. So obviously, I have this relationship with time where I feel like, oh my God, it's running out, or it's not enough, or it's limiting me. So that's how I look at time. So yeah, may not be healthy, but
Actually,
that's it.
that reminds me. There's a part in your book that where you on one of your travels, the person who's showing you around, I believe Peter, his name is, and
Mm.
he asked, and this is at what now, like 42 or 43, when he asked you, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And that
Yeah,
kind of like hit it for me, and I
yeah,
was like, huh, I should think about this for myself too. Like, what do I want to be? Because
right,
you stop, that there's a time till people ask you that question till, and then that expires because you've reached a certain age, and then they don't ask you, what do you want to
right.
be when you grow up? Because
Yeah,
apparently
yeah,
we
we're
are all
done.
grown
Yeah,
up.
I found that I think that he was a tour guide,
Hmm.
and it was not only the beauty of Salzburg that enriched me. That was the secondary thing. I think what was beautiful was that time spent with him. I think it was a very like a spiritual experience for me. I wish I could tell him that, but as I said, like a lot of people I met in my everyday life, Deepak makes it to the book, and so many people that they're little things that they are a reference point to, and I think it's very important uh, to recognize these reference points in your life because the moment you look at it, The moment you have a reference, you have it. You have access to it, or you can bring it into your life, you know. So we have to start making these healthy reference points. So
Yeah.
that's what it was about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was my takeaway from the book, because that's now what I'm going to
yeah,
start thinking about.
yeah,
So Deepak has another question. He's asking you, except for the parts that
yeah.
were about him, what are your other favorite parts in the book?
Okay. So I think the whole book was enjoyable for me, but I think the end of the book, when I say enjoyable, it was a very heart-wrenching experience in one way, but it was a it changed me. I think when I look back at the kind of person I was, when I say kind of person, the way I looked at life, looked at things, it's very different than what it is now. And that's my friend Pia and her struggle and her hospitalization and then her passing made me realize, the whole experience of death up close and personal like that made me realize so much about life, you know. So I think that was very, in- and of course there are other parts of it which are also the fun part when I met all kinds of people who are in the spiritual, and then they do these things. So it's really human, because we suddenly start feeling that because this person is like this, we put them in a slot and then we expect them to behave. People are people, and people do what people think, right? And we tend to put people on pedestals very quickly, and we also get to realize that just because we know something or we practice a healing modality, we don't become uh, we don't become pure and enlightened. We have layers and layers of our own psyche. So um, so it was a very grounding experience, because I keep looking at myself and say, oh, whenever there's not a good reference point, I look at it and say, wow, do I do that? Like, is that something that I do? Right? So I think without judging myself, it becomes a good place for me to shift gears a little bit, right? So yeah, those kind of. And I think somebody also asked me whether
There's
my
another
children, how
question.
did they react to this book,
Yeah.
and also uh, both my kids had a different reaction. The elder one was, oh, okay, but that's how he is. He's not a very okay. And the other one was, wow, that's so cool. Okay, so both of them looked at that book. I think they don't say it in
But
words,
in a
but
way,
they are happy that.
your older one went through it too, right? Oh, I mean, he was very young, but
He was very young. Yeah, but he was about 17 or 18 when the book came out, right? But the experience well, my second born he was not even born when this event took place, right?
yeah.
My elder child went through quite a bit looking at me through this whole experience, but it's all right. I feel that it's also a process of growth for him. So, yeah.
What our loved ones go through, but and it's also enriching for us in every which way. Any that's I think that's all the questions we have,
Okay.
Radhika. I've had such a
Great.
wonderful time chatting with you. Time has
Thank
flown.
you so much. This was a great conversation, and
For me
I'll
too.
be really honest. I just love this opportunity to share this whole thing and talk about my experience. I had done a live video with a lady who's actually on the live video, a wonderful lady, who she spoke to me about anxiety, because a large part of my book was about anxiety. I spoke to one of my one of the psychologists or person I met. Okay, so Deepak had a question. Deepak, let me finish this. And I said to him, a lot of people are going through anxiety and panic attacks and depression in their life. And they feel like when we have a bad day, we feel we are the only ones messed up like that. And these are people who feel that the only ones who are going through that. And that was a huge motivation for me to write this book, that I want to write so that people understand that they're not alone, because it's the loneliness through something that you're going through internally that can really get to a person. And feeling anxious or worrying or feeling anxiety or even having panic attacks can happen to anybody at any point in life, or even depression. And I think it's all right. We got to speak about it. We got to be vulnerable with it. And that's where the healing begins. And you're not alone. And
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like I learned, I'm not the only one who gets upset
Yeah.
or, yeah.
I want to share one little thing here because when I said the word depression, because we tend to feel that people who are always upbeat are not depressed, especially when we see on social media and when you see people are always woohoo, yay, or they're always in this heightened state. And we always feel that, oh my God, I'm not that, I'm depressed, and they are not. One of my teachers, he's no more, a man who shaped my life, and he's not in the book, so I'm going to probably write a book about my experience with him that he said there are two states of depression, two psychological states. One is when you're really depressed and low, and one is a high, when you are all pumped up and inflated, and this is a heightened state, and that too is a state of depression. And you'll see that people are showing themselves in a certain way on social media, but that's not who they are privately. And they're going through that journey very alone, but they're actually depressed. They're not so a person has equanimity and a sense of settlement and calm and peace, because peace is our greatest pursuit. I think that person is not in a depressive state, up or down, right? So, yeah, so the whole book is about you're not alone if you're going through that.
So, Deepak's last question, which is there a side to Radhika Chopra that we don't know of?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what side of me. See, I think I am a person who pretty much uh, is who I am. Like, that's who I am outside. I mean, I'm not saying that I may be that 100% because being human, I must be having filters and, things that my mind is functioning as well. So I must be having that. But I think who I am is who you see, right? Um, yeah. So that's
So, no,
I
Deepak.
can be I can be also anxious, as I said, and I can also I tell people, oh, when I get upset, and I can get angry, and I have those human emotions, and yeah, but you will see that. Yeah.
So, Radhika, I've had a wonderful time chatting with you. Thank you so much for taking time out. Um, and I hope we can do this again about your next book also.
Yeah.
So, get
Thank you
working
so
on
much,
the next one.
Parul.
Thank
I
you.
just want to tell my viewers this is on IGTV here, but I'm going to put it on YouTube because this was fun, and I'm going to put it on my YouTube channel, Transform with Radhika. So, yeah. And special, oh, thank you. So, yeah, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
I did. I loved the chat.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye bye. Thanks.